I first came in 2017 and it was just on a leisure vacation trip. I went to Choi Hung maybe on that time, but I didn't go to a lot of different basketball courts. And it was on the next trip that I was exploring housing estates and other areas and car parks, just wandering around, that I kept encountering basketball courts. And I thought, wow, there are like a lot of them. They're really colorful, they're interesting. After that trip, I planned to come back just to shoot basketball courts. And after about 2 weeks of doing solely that, I thought to myself, I have to shoot all of them. I have to make sure that I find every single cool one in the city. So this court is in Ching Park. The really cool thing about it is it looks like it's in the middle of a forest, but actually all the buildings are just right here. You just can't see them. It's one of the few courts in Hong Kong with tree cover over it. But I shot this court in 2019. I had to shoot it just right to get the angles so you could see both of the hoops in here and the little openings in the trees. And it's really special to me because when I went back in 2022, it was totally overgrown and you can't see the hoops anymore. So you could only capture this at one point. So it was a really specific moment in time. This was one of the first courts I shot that I thought, oh, maybe there's something cool about every court in Hong Kong. I should go try and find every single one. So I started in 2019, so it's been, I guess, basically about a 5-year project. I think I calculated it was about 140 total days of shooting over the course of many visits. Most courts I went to more than once to get the right lighting, or it was closed or that sort of thing. So in between visits, I was cataloging photos, organizing them, picking the best ones, that sort of thing. So it's been countless hours for sure. Pretty much every day I was here, more or less, I was out shooting. Most days it was like sunrise to sunset, like all day, just wandering around, getting all of them. I was pretty relentless. So the pink one, obviously it matches my attire. Actually, one of the first times I went to it, I was accidentally wearing some like pink pants and like a green jacket, and I took a picture of myself and I was like accidentally matching the court when I was there. I love this court, not just because it's pink and pastel-y, but because it's one of the few courts in Hong Kong that's also part of a school. There are like 20 schools in Hong Kong that will let you come use their courts after hours, like at nights and on the weekends. So this is one of the few that does that. Unfortunately, not all good things can last. This one was already pretty old. Last winter it was being refurbished. The walls are now a dark burgundy and the court's now fancy and green or whatever. So it's not the same as it once was, but I was very fortunate to go there on many a Sunday and check it out. I probably visited this one 4 or 5 different times just because I liked it so much. So I did a lot of it just looking at Google Maps, satellite imagery, looked at every school, every housing estate, every playground to make sure I got if there was a court there or not. And then anywhere that looked like it had a court, I just visited in person and tried to check it out and make sure that I wasn't missing any. So I had like a big Excel spreadsheet of like all 1950 locations with how many courts each one has, the color coding, what district they're in, what type of court they're at. They're at a school, playground, housing estate. They have a code for each specific thing they go in my photo organization. So it's very meticulous. I mean, it's just my own research, taking things from Google, and there are a few official lists like in the Leisure and Services Department and the Housing Authority, but really it's mostly just my own research that I did. So this court is in Chung Chau. It's probably one of the most recognizable courts in Hong Kong. If you've been to Chung Chau and walked around, you've probably walked by it. And that's why I really like it, because most basketball courts are kind of out of the way. They're at housing estates, they're at playgrounds. You don't really encounter them in normal life. And this is one of the few courts that's just part of the scenery in Chung Chau, and you're just walking around. And I bet most people walk by it and they want to take this very same picture of the sea behind and that sort of thing. And you can even see southern Hong Kong Island right back here. It just makes for a picture that everyone wants to take. So I wish there were more courts in Hong Kong that people just encountered on their regular commutes and walks, that they could just walk by and look at and say, oh wow, that's beautiful, that's a part of Hong Kong. Hong Kong courts are really the most interesting in the world to me. I started shooting basketball courts here, and since then I've shot them in, I think, 14 countries, 15 different states. And where I'm from in the United States, basketball courts are for the most part not an interesting tableau. They're at a park, they're asphalt, they're not colorful. Hong Kong, they're almost always colorful, almost always around an interesting building or scenery or landscape, that sort of thing. So you can really, the most interesting court in the United States where I'm from is probably one of the least interesting courts in Hong Kong. And that pretty much has been true for the rest of the world. Hong Kong not only has the most interesting, but it has the most of any city in the world that I've found outdoor-wise. I think the only competitor would be New York, hovering around 2,000 based on my count. So I think Hong Kong's got about 500 more. The biggest enemy to my shooting, the hardest thing for me, the biggest challenge was the sun, because it really casts a lot of shadows in Hong Kong. There's a lot of buildings, trees, because the courts are so flat, shadows cast across them very frequently. So I want really nice, clean images without shadows, because I want to show off all the lines of the court. So I want that like diffuse light that the cloudy day provides. Normally, like my favorite kind of day here is the day where it's cloudy all day, instead of the day where I think it's going to be cloudy and I get on a bus and by the time I get to where I'm going, there's not a cloud in the sky. So there were a few that were out in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't even know if there was one out there. So I had to go check it. I mean, yeah, I would spend like all day going out to like Tap Mun Island. So yeah, there were probably about 15 or 20 courts that took like a whole half day to get to. So yeah, there were a lot on my last few that took like a week to just get the last few that I knew I needed to go out to. So this, if you may or may not know, it's kind of hard to tell from the air, but this is actually the Kowloon Walled City Park, and they demolished it and put the park here and everything, so it's been like this for about 20 plus years. And the really cool thing to me is they actually just had an exhibition here about the Kowloon Walled City, and one of Greg Girard's photos from the Kowloon Walled City before it was taken down, you can see the 4 basketball courts in front of the walled city. They're asphalt, they're not green, but I'm pretty sure they're the exact same 4 courts that are there right now. So there's one vestige of the walled city that still remains, and it's the basketball courts that were just outside of it. So I really wish I could go back in time and shoot the basketball courts with the walled city in the background. But this is good enough for me as it is, but it shows the historical element, and they don't really move around. Once they're there, they just get refurbished. Hong Kong, to me, is like one of the most visually interesting cities in the world. Just from a photographer's perspective, there's always something interesting, whether it's street photography, people, neon signs, basketball courts, mountains, landscape, buildings, architecture. There's something for everyone if you're into visuals, and it's just such a unique place. It's a combination of old and new and urban and rural. There's really no place like it, and there's no place that I've found that's more creatively invigorating than Hong Kong.